Greetings fellow gamers, I'm the Soulsborne Seeker and today I'll be reviewing Voidwrought, a cosmic horror Metroidvania game developed by Powersnake and released on the 24th of October 2024 for PC and Nintendo Switch. Voidwrought transpires within an ancient city which was once home to the first civilization, a place now withered and reduced to nothing but a husk of its former self. However, once every century the city comes alive as Ichor, the lifeblood of the progenitors, bursts forth once more, resulting in a siren's call to a variety of different opportunists, each one venturing down the fallen world for their own purposes. You embody an unholy creation birthed by the fusion of Ichor and the Void, tasked with exploring the city in order to end the reign of the old, tainted gods that inhabit it. But whether your actions will lead to the land's salvation or condemnation remains to be seen. As a huge fan of cosmic horror, I am delighted to say that the setting of Voidwrought is just drenched in Lovecraftian dread, featuring some of the most beautifully hand-drawn biomes I have ever seen in the genre, with each area evoking its own brand of degeneration and existential terror that results from the tainted touch of grand abominations beyond one's understanding. From the decrepit commons to the frozen wastes of the old water, all the way to the apocalyptic surface and the metallic confines of the Lost Expedition, the world of Voidwrought is just teeming with detailed environmental storytelling that denotes to a tale of hubris and persistently misguided arrogance that led to the downfall of not only a whole civilization, but also of those on the hunt for its legacy. Aside from environmental storytelling, the game also gives you snippets of lore via dialogue, as well as journal pages, item descriptions, and texts carved on primeval stones, all of which slowly piece together a puzzle of cosmic proportions. Here I should mention that the game features two different endings that I know of, which are connected to certain decisions you make during your adventure, meaning you will need at least 2 playthroughs to see everything this tale has to offer. Special note also goes to the various characters that populate this sanity-shattering realm, each one standing out in terms of design and, at times, personality. The world of Voidwrought is not only beautiful but also home to an ungodly amount of secrets and collectibles. For starters, you will come across an item called Dormant Salt Receptacle, which can be used to upgrade your healing item slots, thus allowing you more opportunities to heal in and out of combat. Additionally, you will discover Shards of Vitae, which increase your health when gathered in groups of 3. Furthermore, you'll find the aforementioned journal pages scattered about, which are intended as lore snippets that flesh out the setting, as well as a variety of different materials that can be used for a range of actions, such as opening secret vaults that upgrade your damage and purchasing various items from the few merchants that inhabit the realm. You'll also discover relics, which are artifacts that you equip in order to gain active abilities at the cost of void charges, your battle currency, such as strengthening your claws for a brief period of time, as well as souls, which on the contrary provide passive benefits like extra health or increased rate of regeneration for void charges. Moreover, you will get to gather lots of Ichor, the game's main currency, which is dropped by killing enemies, completing side quests, as well as breaking destructible items in the environment. Another secret you'll go on the hunt for are certain creatures called envoys, which you'll have to silence the old-fashioned way, something which is connected to the game's different endings. Finally, you'll get to find and acquire followers by lighting certain fires, which is where one of the game's most interesting systems comes into play. Voidwrought features a sort of base-building cult-themed mechanic with which you expand your home area piece by piece according to the number of followers and amount of Ichor you have at any given moment. By doing that, you open up new paths that may lead to collectibles, hidden areas, as well as new NPCs that will offer assistance to you. I have to admit I truly enjoyed that aspect of the game and found myself constantly curious as to what sort of secret I would be discovering with my next expansion. Also, as expected from a Metroidvania game, you'll get a chance to obtain a variety of different abilities related to mobility that will open up the world for you, which you acquire by finding certain rooms within which float egg-like orbs that you assimilate. I have to say that I found the game's map to be very user-friendly and functional, with clear distinctions between biomes, proper marking of special rooms, such as safe, fast travel, ability acquisition, and vault points, as well as thankfully the option to place your own manual markers of diverse visual styles, which was a lifesaver since Voidwrough's exploration can be quite challenging, especially when it comes to finding certain hidden rooms concealed by breakable walls that can be tricky to spot. I didn't get to find anything that allowed me to see collectibles on the map, so I highly recommend you start using the manual markers from early on. The game also features a very handy fast travel system that unlocks within the first couple of hours, which allows you to jump around the biomes by using these rooms. You can also unlock one more form of fast travel via the base building system, through which you can use the game's mirror save points to travel between the save point of your base and the last save point you used in the map, which can be helpful at times, though I didn't use it that much. On a final note for exploration, I need to mention that Voidwrought is one of the most open-ended Metroidvanias I have played recently, featuring an incredible degree of non-linearity, meaning that you can go about the discovery of the world by carving your own path to a large extent. That means you can find creative ways to access areas for which you may not have the proper ability to do so at the moment. For example, by pogoing off enemies to reach high places even though you may not have the double jump or climb ability yet, something that offers an immense sense of freedom. In terms of platforming, I didn't really experience anything extraordinary here, though to be honest, part of the reason for that was the aforementioned climb ability, which, once acquired, pretty much makes traversal of the environment quite trivial and can be used in place of most other abilities with very few exceptions. In essence, even though there were some acrobatic segments that would have been a bit challenging otherwise, they were made easy by that particular ability that had me jumping off walls like a madman without a care in the universe. I have mixed feelings in relation to that skill, since on the one hand it made the whole world my playground, but on the other, it reduced platforming difficulty to nearly non-existent. That aside, I do have one more minor complaint here, and that has to do with an area called the Void. During the preview video I made, I mentioned how platforming in that biome was a bit finicky due to the platforms being lined by eyes that didn't match the actual circumference of the platform, which led to me constantly being unsure if I was landing on solid ground or not, and resulted to a few falls that could have otherwise been avoided. In this final version of Voidwrought, the Void got much darker and visually rough, which made it even harder to know where you'll be landing, though I will admit that the developers increased the number of platforms across it, so ironically, I didn't fall to my death as much as I did previously. Still, I would have preferred a more visually clear area. Combat-wise, I'm glad to report that Voidwrought tries to go the extra mile with significant success. On a basic level, you get a lightning-fast melee claw combo with which you can tear your enemies apart in satisfying fashion. On top of that, you also get the aforementioned relics, which bring a variety of different effects in combat, such as producing light beams that set your enemies on fire, augmenting your claw damage, and throwing explosives, among others, effectively bringing ranged attacks into the mix. Of note here is the responsiveness and accuracy of the pogo mechanic, which I found incredibly useful against certain enemies. As mentioned previously, your damage can be upgraded by finding ancient vaults and solving a puzzle that unlocks them, of which I was not a fan of since I found it unnecessarily complex, and your health expands by locating the aforementioned vitae shards. Healing is carried out by pressing down a specific button which allows you to channel your healing shards and restore your hit points. Here I do feel the obligation to mention that Voidwrought features what I like to call cage fights, which refers to the fact that from time to time you'll get locked inside a room and have to fight a few waves of enemies before you can move forward, which I know is something that some people may not find appealing, though I didn't mind it. Boss-wise, I'm beyond elated to say that the bosses I got to fight were not only visually stunning, but incredibly fun to duke it out with as well, each one featuring a healthy range of attacks that kept things interesting and required good observation of certain animations that telegraphed each moveset in order to make sure you emerged victorious. Main bosses aside, there are also several optional big bads for you to discover and take down, which is a big plus. That being said, I did feel like boss difficulty became progressively easier the more upgrades I acquired, to the point where I could face tank the attacks of most of them while dealing lots of damage with my basic combo as well as relics. I still had to be careful for a few of them, but nothing compared to the earlier boss fights which could quickly end you if you weren't careful. In terms of difficulty, I found Voidwrought to be challenging at the start before getting progressively easier as I advanced due to the aforementioned character upgrading, though the open-endedness of the map means that each player may experience the game's challenge differently depending on how they go about exploring, since you may end up facing a boss much earlier than expected, which will most likely result in you getting decimated, like it happened with me. Lengthwise, it took me 8.5 hours to complete the game with 89% completion rate and one of the two endings, with an estimated additional 2 to 3 hours for 100% completion depending on player skill and observation level. For a price of about $20, I consider Voidwrought to offer very good value for money, especially if you intend to fully explore its world. Before I conclude, I do wish to mention one more thing that I truly enjoyed to see in Voidwrought in terms of quality of life functions for the players, and that is the region tab located in its menu. The reason I make special mention of this is because this tab actually shows you the completion progress you have in each separate area, which makes it easier for you to track your progress if you intend to go for 100%. In conclusion, I had a ton of fun playing Voidwrought. I adored its lore and the Lovecraftian creatures that inhabited its world. I loved its boss fights, I had a blast with exploration. I was dumbfounded by its art style and ended up very impressed by the combat variety offered from relic usage. The game's difficulty did fizzle out as I kept getting stronger. I wasn't a fan of the vault puzzles. I didn't enjoy my limited time in the Void and I have mixed feelings about the traversal triviality enforced by the wall climb skill, but it has been quite some time since a game has grabbed me to that extent through sheer world building, visual presentation, crisp controls and sprawling exploration, making Voidwrought one of my favorite Metroidvanias of 2024. My final verdict on Voidwrought is 8.7 out of 10. What are your thoughts on Voidwrought? Have you played it yet? Do you agree with the points I mentioned or do you see things differently? Let me know in the comments below and please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Soulsborne Seeker out!